It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Tony Zorc. Hi, Tony. How are you?
I'm good, Douglas. How are you doing?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I was kind of intrigued by your bio when I saw it. My producer sent it to me. And looking at the picture, is the show that you're doing something akin to Hal Holbrook doing Mark Twain?
You know, it's really been compared to Mark Twain a lot, like a corrupt, evil version of Mark Twain is this character, Congressman Curly. But I get that a lot. It's crazy, and I feel like his sense of humor and what he's doing is analogous to that on the other end of the spectrum. But Mark Twain made fun of the Congress a lot too, so it's very analogous, I think.
Well, Mark Twain's show was primarily social commentary, right, of what was going on at that time.
Right, exactly. I feel like it's a modern version of that, right? Yeah, so I think we're on the right vibe, and I'm glad it's cool that you brought that up without me saying it, so thank you.
This is a one-man show, presumably, right?
It is right now. So we performed 6 shows in the D.C. area. I did it as a one-man show, and we are leveling up the show. I'm adding a full band to it, so there'll be 4 members of the band, and then I'm adding 2 other kind of actors, singers to the show as well. So all in, I believe it'll be a 7-person ensemble. Starting next year, we're going to use a half band in the next couple shows to build up to that, but it'll be probably a 7-person act when it's in its full gear, I think.
So what are they going to do? Is that going to be like a halftime show?
No, so the 4 band members. So the show is rock. The show is rock pop music along with comedy. So it's almost the fusion of a stand-up comedy show with a live rock and roll band. I wrote a 25-song catalog, got it recorded. We've released 10 of the songs as singles, and we're performing about 10 or 11 of them in the show. So when you go to the show, you'll feel like it's a comedy show with a rock band feel kind of fused together, all about the social commentary, what you said about our divided country and how we got here, giving you the background through this character, Congressman Curly, who is the most corrupt politician to have ever lived. He's a metaphor for the Democratic Republican duopoly that we have right now.
So do you sing?
I do. Yeah, I sung.
Okay.
So you can hear me I'm on about 20 different streaming platforms. You can hear me perform on those. I've released about 10 songs. I've got another song coming out here in just a couple of days, and then I have a Christmas song as well. The Christmas song is pretty insane. It's 5 different parodies of Christmas songs fused together. I will tell you, I'll never do another Christmas song again, Douglas. It was absolutely the most difficult song I did.
So the songs that you do in the show, are they political parody songs as well? So my first song that came out is Beast Congressman, and so that's a rap. It's a 90s style rap, Curly boasting about his rise. And I've done multiple genres because my goal is to create political unity through this show and present this big idea to the American public, and my goal is to get this big idea into the national conversation, that we don't have to stick with these 2 corrupt parties, that we can form 2 new political parties and replace the Democratic and Republican political parties under new rules with a goal of amending the Constitution. And these rules would be term limits built into the party bylaws, as well as campaign financing built in. and agreement to amend the Constitution for these things permanently. And this is the big idea I'm trying to present through this show. And it's a very big idea, obviously, and to get this idea into the national conversation is a massive effort, and that's what kind of the goal behind the show is. But yes, I sing. So I sung a multi-genre catalog. So it's not. I knew to appeal to all of America, I couldn't have just one genre. So we've got some jazz songs, some rock songs. We've got some rap songs, some country in there, but they're all designed. I would say it's still pop music with a flair of these other things. So I think if you like what we're doing, you'll probably walk away with, like, I like that one song, maybe not the whole catalog, but hopefully you'll like the whole catalog. I think it's good.
Well, I don't think Mark Twain sang, did he?
No, I don't think he did either, but he also didn't have really. He might have, right? If given, who knows? But yeah, so it's Mark Twain, and then add in something above and beyond that.
So where did this all come from? Where did the concept of Congressman Curly come from?
Well, gosh, so I should ask you how much time we have, because I could go on and on forever.
Well, keep it to a couple of minutes.
All right, I should be a couple. So I had a family crisis. I was a very successful technology entrepreneur, started a bootstrap software company from the ground up, made millions of dollars doing this. My wife and I had a family tragedy, and on March 27th of 2019, we lost our 20-year-old son, totally unexpectedly.
Sorry to hear that.
And thank you. And this just launched me into a whole new realm of life, turned to my wife and said, wow, we have quite a bit of money. We don't even have to work. What's the meaning of all this? Life is so short. Do you have any real things you want to do? And she said no. And she asked me the same. And I said, yeah, I can't stand this. I can't stand where the country's headed. This division is going to destroy us. So I looked into joining. My first instinct was not to do this. It was to join one of the Democratic or Republican parties and be you run for Congress, run for governor, run for Senate, something like that. And the more I looked into Washington, how it worked, these parties, it was just disgusting what I saw. It's corrupt. I decided I didn't want to be a part of it at all. So I ran for president as an independent for 2024. I was running to try to attract attention to this cause that I have, which this idea to start new parties and amend our Constitution. I just didn't have the name to get this off the ground. I hired 2 PR firms. I ran a full presidential campaign. I was just, what I discovered about the media is these, all the mainstream political media is you can be on there tomorrow night if you are willing to say what they want you to say. If you have your own agenda, you are largely not welcome, from what I've been told and experienced. So I was about to give up on the whole thing. Meanwhile, I knew to appeal to people culturally, which is what I believe our problem is, and that is why it's so hard to fix. It's not just we don't have a policy problem; we have a cultural problem. That's why it's massive to fix. The solution was going to come outside of Washington, so I decided to sing these songs and do a movie. I do a movie that I released on YouTube. The movie, I spent about $750,000 on this movie, which is very cheap for a film, and it looked cheap. And a lot of people said, "Okay, that looked like a comedy show. Were you trying to be funny?" I'm like, "No, I wasn't. I was trying to be serious, but it was that bad, I guess." But then people thought it was really funny. I dressed up as these different characters and whatnot. And so I just kept getting that response. And I said, you know what, why don't I try to take this in a direction with comedy? So I went and I enrolled in stand-up comedy lessons, went to stand-up comedy school at a school based in Los Angeles, went out as this character, Congressman Curly, did open mics in both Florida and Maryland, and decided I could be a comedian doing this. And then I decided to try to learn comedy, make it a foundation of comedy, but comedy and music together, to have this show to raise this big idea. So that's what that's how I got here. And,
okay. I'm curious what school you went to in LA, because I've had a couple of people who run comedy schools in LA.
Yeah, so Jerry Corley is the guy who I went to. He runs stand-up comedy clinic, and he was a really fantastic coach. He was a comedian himself and wrote for The Tonight Show and that type of thing.
Okay, that wasn't the guy that name isn't familiar, but I'm sure there's more than one.
Yeah, it's a whole industry of comedy coaches. There's several out there.
Well, let me ask you something. So the big idea that you're trying to promote, I mean, that's a serious topic, right?
Yeah.
That's not a comedy. Why didn't you just write a book? Because a lot of people come up with things like that. And I'll give you an example. I had a guy on who wanted to change the electoral college system whereby it's not a winner-take-all system. So and I thought this was a great idea, where the actual number, you know what I mean? In other words, like if your state has 30 electoral votes, then maybe 12 go to the Democrats and 18 go to the Republicans or whatever, however the popular vote comes in. So he wanted to do that. Well, he wrote a book and then got on the book tours and did fairly well. I mean, he got on some of the major networks with it as well. So why didn't you go that route? I'm just curious.
What's his name and where is he at now? Let me ask you that.
I have to let you know because
so that was just answered my question.
800 interviews ago
because you don't remember him.
Well, but I don't remember most of the people that have been on the show. I do this for a living.
Well,
so
I hope you're going to remember me.
That's not a fair assessment because I've done over 1,000 interviews. So
I know you have. I know you have. But honestly, it is a fair assessment, Douglas, because that is the whole reason I'm doing this, is because that doesn't work, and there's several people who have done that, right? Yeah, so he can get on the book tour. You're not hearing about him in the news. He's not rallying people. You've got to get out there and rally people. You got to change hearts and minds to do this. There's so many policy things that will work, and that's not the problem. So that's why I'm writing a book as well, on top of what I'm doing. But unless you get out there and you rally people, you don't have a chance at making any change.
Well, okay, your point is taken. Having said that, I mean, even the President of the United States, which is as high as you can go, has limitations put on them as far as what they can do. So
yes,
the idea that we're going to change the world is a nice idea, but can one man do it?
No, one man can't do it, and I couldn't do it. I wasn't running as president to make that change. That the president doesn't have the power to make this change. No, it takes a movement. This takes unity, real political unity. So it takes millions of people to do this.
Well, let me ask you something about unity, and then we'll kind of wind this down. We've been skirting around this whole issue about a divided country, and I try to avoid politics on this show because
I bet.
because there's enough, sort of angry political rant shows out there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, there is.
And that was one thing I really didn't want to do, but I'm always curious to people's opinions. So why do you think it's so bad? Because I'm 62 years old, and I have never seen it this bad. Now, I remember my father talking about 1968, and I suppose this year is comparable to that in terms of real division in the country. I don't know, it's different because the issues are different. Then it was Vietnam, civil rights. The Democrat Party was all in flux, which is similar to what's going on now, although we didn't have assassinations. What is it that is causing us to be so
what's
divided
causing
now?
this is the vast majority of America is not participating in our democratic process. They have checked out. They're disgusted. They don't want anything to do with it.
So just not voting at all?
That's leaving the most extreme 10% of conservatives, 10% of liberals driving all the party decisions. And this corrupt duopoly, this Democratic Republican, what I call in my act the Democratic Republican fiesta, it's kind of like the mafia. they've locked out any real competitors from challenging them. And so now you have the most extreme people who are politically active driving these decisions, and the two parties make the most money. This is just a money game, Douglas. This is just a business decision, and they maximize their funding, having razor close elections with outrage on both sides. And this is just, they figured out over enough years how to do business, how to do it well, how to do it effectively. And nowadays, I mean, to say these parties represent Americans is just a ridiculous joke at this point. It's just these are essentially casted actors and roles at this point. And so this is not going to change. It's only going to get worse. And what, we almost need a new start. This idea I have is so big, but honestly, if the country's going to continue, there has to be a big change. So I realize, my chances of failing of this are massive, right? My son's passing and all this just made me not care anymore. I just want to go for it, and I'll see where I land. And, I can look back and say when the country was going down the tubes, first off, you have to be independently wealthy to even do anything about it, which precludes most people. This is such a high cost to make a difference here. And so the money I have won't go far, but it will get me through this next couple of years. And if I can bring people together. So what real political unity is, Douglas? It's not what you hear on the TV when the parties use their unity buzzword. That means they're just trying to get you on board with their ideology. Real political unity means we agree on the rules of the game, with some of those chief rules being how long a player stays in the game and who funds their campaign. All those rules have just broken down, and there are no rules anymore.
Well, so you said it was basically a money-making game. Making money for whom? For the party?
For the parties, and also making money for the corporations, sponsoring the legislation, opening up the doors, deregulation. Oh, okay. It's letting all those and the unions and the special interest groups. The special interest groups getting the laws they pass. The unions and the corporate PACs. It's just a mechanism for those, and the politicians. There's so many loopholes for these politicians to make tons of money in speaking fees, in board seats, in partnerships outside of this. The revolving door around lobbying. The politicians are getting. I mean, Dianne Feinstein was a public servant and had $63 million upon her, her passing. Like this. How does that work? I don't think she inherited this money. There's this case in case. The biggest way to make money now is stock trades through the Congress. It's all legitimate. You can the people who are regulating the companies and passing legislation can go out and make stock trades before legislation passes that will tank those stocks or blow those stocks up. There's just millions of ways to make money.
Yeah, that's not insider trading.
Not technically insider trading. It's not against the law, but it's not right.
I was being sarcastic. That is insider trading,
Yeah. It is, yeah.
But it's not against the law. That's the problem. It should be.
Right. Yeah, and Congress isn't going to pass laws that do that. They're not going to, and that's why you have to flush this out. You got to have a restart for this to work. So, and stranger things have happened than what I'm proposing. It just takes a lot of people to get interested and get checked into politics. Like you said, Douglas, the first thing you said is why did I not write a book and do a book tour? Well, I'm doing that too, but you don't remember the guy who wrote the book. And no offense to you, that's just that no one remembers any of these people who write these books.
Well,
right?
I remember the book. I think that's more important.
Yeah. Look, I'm siding. You're proving my point, which is, it's not enough to. The book is not whatever it is. You remember the book. The book's not enough to get a teenage girl, who's 18 involved, right? You've got to go. The only way to get these masses of people involved is to get them unified around something they feel good about, something they're excited about, and that's something in the pop culture realm, right? That's music or film or a character or something like that.
Well,
and
okay, I agree with you on that. The problem is now with media and technology, there's just way too many. I had this discussion, a similar discussion, with somebody who was around my age, and we said, when we were growing up, there was only 3 channels on TV,
Mm-hmm.
and when you went to work or you went to school the next day, guarantee that group of people that is your life, that all of them watched one of those shows that was on.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an affinity immediately there because you
Right.
could say, oh, did you see that? Yeah. 30% of the people would have seen the show that you watched, right?
Yeah.
Okay, well, now it's nearly impossible.
I hear you. Well, and I went, I was born in 73. I'm going to be 51 years old. So I was, watching television in the 70s and 80s and, before cell phones and everything. So I don't understand exactly what you're talking about. On the flip side, though, everyone is connected with 6 degrees of separation. So that's the other thing that this can really boil up is that people, if they believe in this and it catches on, your ability to gain popularity and recognition through these tools can be like wildfire too. So it's a double-edged sword. I hear you, but and especially with political things, people, there's so much out there. And just like you said, most people choose just to ignore them, just not to have anything to do with it. Which is why I'm very thankful you have me on your show, by the way. I really, really appreciate that because several people just be like, they'll pass, right?
Well, I'm just trying to think and I'll just use the term messiah for lack of a better term. If in this culture where everyone is so distracted, if somebody can come like a Messiah, I mean, short of Jesus Christ coming back himself, is there going to be that? I mean, we had periods in history where there were famous people. When the Beatles landed in America, there was that moment. When Elvis first appeared on Ed Sullivan, there was that moment. When Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, there was that moment where everyone sort of came together. 9/11, sort of, but it didn't last for too long. Mm-hmm. And then I had people on the show during the COVID pandemic that wanted to all rally around and sing Kumbaya over COVID. And I thought, no, that's not a good one. Nobody wants to rally around a virus. I'm sorry.
Right.
It needs to be something more interesting than that. So, somebody could argue that Trump has made some inroads in that because he does have some real diehard followers. I don't think the Democrats have been as successful.
But Trump is he's completely gone in as an actor on the red agenda here. So
well,
he's
right,
just
but I'm saying
side.
that he has made more of a success of unifying that side than the Democrats have, because Biden wasn't it, so they threw him out. And Harris, I don't know.
But unity of one side is not unity. That's
But
only
that's
unity
not
of half.
right. It's not
right?
unity. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And all, and they use this is the problem, Douglas. They use the unity buzzword time and time again. It doesn't mean anything. And they all say the same speech, essentially. It's really almost a beauty pageant at this point, right? I think Kamala might win just because she's arguably better looking than Trump. It could be that simple.
Well, I think if she wins, it's because she's not Trump.
Right.
I said that last election. I said nobody voted for Biden. They just voted against Trump.
Right. Yeah.
Because Trump has this nasty habit of sort of
Being
inspiring, and inspiring real venom against him. People either love him or they hate him. There's no middle ground with him.
Well, and so I think, so few people love him compared to hate him. I think, a lot of people comment that Trump won't do as well in a general election. But I think, I think what's going on with this election, I think that people, our disengagement, the people not voting, is going to be as high as ever because people are just seeing the same thing. I think there's, the love affair we see with Kamala right now, we had with Obama when he first started out, and it's almost like it's not a celebration of Kamala, it's a celebration that got rid of Biden.
Well, exactly, because they knew he wasn't even going to make it.
I know. I mean, no, and arguably not even doing the job right now. He's on vacation, pissed off at everybody for kicking him out. Oh, I was going to say, I think, whether it's a political messiah or a movement, I think, one of the things with politics is things don't happen that quickly, right? So I see this building up over time, and as I said, I'm 50 years old. I have a lot of working years ahead of me. I'm in good health, and if I can fund this through the sales of these tickets and merchandise and that thing, I'll keep going. But if not, I'll have to stop too, because I can't fund it indefinitely forever either. But that's what I'm asking, is that people who like the cause, you promote it within their circle of influence, and enough people do that, then it will grow, and people will get behind it. And it is something we can do. It's something that's amazing about our country that's different from other countries, is that the founders left the option for us to do this, but this unity concept, real political unity, is very difficult to achieve, especially with all the distractions, as you've mentioned, Douglas, and the doubt and the misinformation, and it's crazy. So.
Well, I think we need a Martian invasion. I mean, Reagan talked about that at a speech to the UN in the early 80s. He said that's one way to unify the country, the world, not even the country. Unify the world is if the Martians suddenly invaded.
It could be. It could be. I mean, maybe we can get Elon Musk to organize a fake Martian attack.
Yeah. Well, then everybody would point their guns at the Martians instead of at each other.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways, Tony, we got to wrap this up. Thank you so much. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
I do. CongressmanCurly.org. Please check it out. We have our show dates on. We just wrapped up 6 shows in D.C., and we're playing in Florida this fall and spring. Several shows there, and always open for donations, of course. And check us out on social media. But really appreciate the opportunity, Douglas. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And best of luck with the shows. I hope they do well.
All right, thank you.